know we've come together today to really talk about team ministry and what that means to the two of you. But marriage is a really powerful thing in the sight of God, and he loves it when we marry. But he loves it even better when husband and wife understand that there is team ministry where the two of you come together to accomplish something for God. And I do believe you guys are co-evangelists. Is that the right term? Is that how you say that?
Sure.
I believe you would call it that.
Co-evangelists. Well, we're going to start with you, Jonathan, because I've known you for about 20 years or so, I think. And I've watched God do amazing things in your life. And I'd just like you to just share with us some of the amazing things that God has done. And you can do that any way you like.
Well, God has truly been just awesome. I mean, his presence has just been overwhelming in my life from the time I was a child until now. I was raised in a Christian home, and God has always looked out for me, saved my life many times, even when I didn't know it or I didn't recognize it, or you know, I was just headed totally the other direction. God was still always there for me. He made every transition that I needed to make into life. I mean, he made it a success. He never ever left me hanging, not one time. I mean, no matter how far I went out there, God never left me hanging. Every situation he took care of. And until recently here, I just graduated from Raymond Bible College, so he brought me from a child that was just, you know, running away from his calling to somebody now, you know, going straight after God, you know, going to ministry school.
Well, let me tell you, I mean, it's interesting because I really didn't want to unpack some things this quickly, but you've just really hit a piece. And I'm going to do this early on. And my listening audience, or those that view MyNewsReal, are accustomed to me doing this, but I didn't think I was going to do it so early on. I really want you to look in that camera. And you mentioned on how God intervened in your life as a young man. Look in that camera and talk to some other young people on how they might know that God is pulling their coattail and intervening when they're doing some really, when they're involved in some things that are not in their best interest.
Well, if you're doing things that, you know, I mean, we know right from wrong. We already know right from wrong. And if you're doing stuff that, you know, just doesn't line up, just doesn't seem right, and you're still going forward, then you know God is doing something for you. It's God that's actually doing something for you. It's God that's keeping you every time. It's God that looks out for you every time you're in a place where you shouldn't be. It's God who keeps you. What else did you want me to address?
Just that. I mean, the sheer passion of that, because the other thing the audience does not know is that you have an incredible biblical history. I mean, you've got a dad that is absolutely amazing, who has done such an incredible job of not only talking God in front of you, but living that God he believes in front of you, and never wavering from that, and staying true to what he believed God was calling him to do in terms of raising you guys in just respecting who God is. So if there's some young people out there who have parents in their lives who they may be rebelling against, and they could be church kids, right?
Yes,
they could be church kids.
Absolutely.
Look again in that camera and tell, you know, preachers' kids or PKs, listen, it's really not as bad as you think it is being a PK.
Listen, it's really not as bad as you think it is being a PK. After growing up, after getting a closer relationship with God, I look back on things like my parents, as in growing up, and the things that my dad did where he lived a life, and a perfect example, you know, not perfect, but a great example to Jesus Christ for us. But growing up, we didn't see none of that. I didn't care about that. You know, all I cared about is, why do I got to be home in the house earlier than everybody else? Why do I got to learn scriptures? Why do I gotta do an extra book report that none of my friends are doing? You know, why do I gotta make sure everything I do is right? Or why, you know, why me? And it seemed like, why me? But now, after growing up, I can look back and I can see that my dad, everything that my father did was to live an example life for us, for Jesus Christ, because he, not wavering, not ever wavering, not one time in front of us would he. I mean, he's never lied. He's a man that I know that never lied. even if it was going to get me out of trouble. It was one instance. Can I share one instance
Absolutely.
we had? One instance where I was in school. I was in high school, and I was in 11th grade, and I had a pocket knife at school. And I had just working with the pocket knife day before. I had a pocket knife in and I took it out of my pocket because when the girl sitting beside me wanted me to cut some yarn or something she had from art class, and I wanted to just show off. I was like, oh, I can cut that for you, you know. I took out my little scissors on my Swiss Army knife and cut it. And lo and behold, a teacher just came right behind me and just pulled it right out of my hand, just like that. Just took it right out of my hand. And I told it, and he was like, okay, you're in for it, buddy, you know. And I looked straight at him just like I was telling the truth, and I said, I just found that knife. And he was like, oh, really? Okay, well, you can let the security people know. So I just went to the security office, you know, make a long story short, we went through the stuff, and I told him, I was like, I just found that knife, and I was getting ready to go turn it in, just like a good old boy, getting ready to turn it in. And so they was like, oh, okay, you know, they knew who my father was and everything, and they was like, okay, well, we appreciate you going to turning that in, but we still going to let your parents know, you know, what happened, that you had found a knife, you know, and everything would be fine. And so they called my father up to let him know, you know, that the situation, I had found a knife, and I went to turn it in. They were just letting him know that they had pulled me out of the gym, and they were going to send me back to class. And my dad's like, well, what kind of knife did it? Was it a gold knife? Because my knife was gold. And I was like, and they was like, yes. And he was like, oh no, that is his knife. Do what you need to do. And I mean, that was just that right there. I was like, can you budge a little bit, Dad? Can I get one little, I mean, I got expelled for the entire year. Yeah. The entire year because of a man of integrity. But now growing up, I respect that. And I mean, growing up now, I respect the fact that he made me go back from like when I was cutting grass. My father would always come behind me and do stuff like, you need to cut that edge over there too. I'm like, Dad, that's not even their yard. But he was like, no, you always do more than what you're getting paid for, you know. And I thought I was the kid getting harassed by my parent, which that wasn't the case at all when I grew up. So if you have parents that are following the Lord, then follow them as they follow Christ.